We'll get started. First question, Zach Allen.
Hey, Coach. How excited are you to have Victor Oladipo, and what type of actions will you insert in your offense for this special talent?
I'm very excited to have him. It was great to have him here today, and we just went through some offensive and defensive stuff, pretty simple stuff, just stuff that everybody knows, that we've been doing, and just trying to get him integrated into our basic package of offense and defense. As we go forward, there will be actions for him. There will be play calls for him and that sort of thing. But I wanted him to get comfortable just with the basic things that we do. Initially on day one, I didn't want to throw too much at him, but he'll have a big piece of the pie for sure going forward.
Jonathan Fagan.
Did you get some of the guys back practice today, and what is the status of some of them for tomorrow?
Yeah, so Cuz and Eric are probable for tomorrow. Sterling is questionable, and John Wall is out.
Do you have a feeling on a timetable of John?
I really don't. I wish I did, but again, like I said yesterday, that's just trying to take it day by day and make sure that we're doing it in a smart way, that he can play a lot of games this season going forward. We don't want to really push so hard that we're losing sight of the long-term goal.
How much of a setback is it then, not just for games, obviously, but to try and get everything to sort of indoctrinated and in place, that you're doing it with a changing group for practice every day?
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, today it was good to have some of the guys in, but a lot of the things that we did had after Mason Jones played a lot of minutes last night at the point, and he was cramping up and stuff because he hadn't played that many minutes in an NBA game before. So he wasn't really good for much besides, just making sure that his body was right. So a lot of the things that we did in practice, in the limited practice that we had, was with Victor at the 1, and he'll be obviously starting at the 2. So we had to kind of like finagle it a little bit in order for it to work out, so you can understand and learn everything that's going on. But to your point, yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard with the guys out, and the hard part, well, one of the hard parts is the fact that guys are playing so many minutes because we're so limited, right? So Seawood played 40 minutes last night, and PJ gave everything he had in the 37 minutes that he played last night. But then 2 days before, he gave everything he had guarding DeRozan and playing a bunch of minutes. So it's that balance of doing what we can to get organized and stay organized. And we have to be a little bit creative doing so, with making sure that the guys are getting their rest, getting off their feet, and having their best for the games.
Thank you.
𝗪𝗧.
Hello, Coach. I would like to ask you, how different is the dynamic of the team with John Wall and Victor Oladipo on the court? And also, what did you see from Rodion Skuruk's last night's debut game?
Yeah, so with John and Vic on the floor together, it's going to be exciting. We're going to play probably a little bit faster, get the ball up the floor a little bit quicker, hopefully attack defenses before they get set a little more. We're going to be a downhill team, and we'll have both sides of the floor with guys on the attack, which is great. And that'll be once John is able to come back and play. So we'll see what that looks like. As far as Rhodey, he did okay last night. It's his first game, and he was excited, and he didn't even know that he was going to be active until if you remember last night when I did my media availability. At that point, we only had 7 guys, so he didn't even know he was going to even play. So for him to actually play and us be organized and him produce at the level that he did was admirable, because to not even know that you're going to be able to actually suit up and then play 20 plus minutes in an NBA game is a hard thing to do.
Ben DuBose.
Coach, you said after yesterday's game that you were hopeful of having Victor for Monday. I assume since he practiced today, he will be in the lineup tomorrow. And also with him coming off his own injury, how much does that factor into Victor's usage this season, the load management component?
Yeah. So he will play tomorrow, and we're looking forward to that. But very much in the same way as John, very much in the same way as Cuz, we just have to be smart about the amount of minutes that he's playing and the amount of load that his body is trying to manage, because it's we really have to look at the long term and the wellness of our players, and to have him go out there and play 40 plus minutes or even high 30s after coming off the injury, after not really doing much for the last few days, doesn't really make sense. Even though we really do want to do everything we can to beat the Bulls, we have to make sure that we're really, really smart about how we move forward with all three guys.
Adam Spolin.
Stephen, even though John and Vic weren't able to practice on the floor together, just how beneficial is it for them to, be together and at least talk basketball and kind of learn each other at this early stage?
Yeah, it's always good. It's always good for guys to communicate. It's always good for guys on the bench to be seeing things, talking about situations. As we were walking through, John was on the side, and he always has good input as we're going through things. So building that chemistry as quickly as possible, maybe not on the floor, but off the floor chemistry is very important. So that's what we're in the process of doing with those two guys.
Mark Berman.
Stephen, how did John injure himself? Is there any concerns it could be more long term than it is, than longer rather than sooner in terms of when you get it back?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I don't believe it's that much of a long-term type deal from the information that I'm getting from the performance staff. It seems like it's just kind of a day-to-day thing, and it wasn't a specific injury. It's just something that kind of just popped up. So they're managing it. He's moving around, but we're being cautious.
Jackson Gatlin.
Hey, Coach. Based on what we saw on display through the two Spurs games and through the better part of the early season from 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧 and kind of his playmaking ability, do you plan to still utilize him in that kind of primary facilitator role moving on down the line, maybe making life easier for some of the guards, or is he going to take more of a back seat in that role once everybody's back and into the lineup?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, he'll obviously take a back seat a little bit when Eric comes back, John and Vic are on the floor, but to limit him and that part of his game, which is a strength of his, doesn't make very much sense to me. So figuring out a way that he can do it some would be good for everybody on the floor, because it's not like he's just making plays for himself. He had 10 assists the other night. So it's kind of an unexpected thing, because I didn't expect to have a point forward on my roster and kind of figuring things out that way. But it's great to have him.
Michael Shapiro.
Hi, Coach. Apologies if this is a bit of a strange question, but after a turbulent, first weeks of games, how would you assess your own performance thus far?
That is a good question. I don't know. I tend to think I've done a pretty good job under the circumstances of training camp, game 1 being canceled, game 2 and 3 having 4 guys out, lately having 8 or 9 guys. It's really not having much practice time. It's a hard thing to manage all of those aspects of it. And if I had to give myself a grade, I would maybe say incomplete, just because it hasn't really been, we haven't had a complete full roster and practice time and all of the things that you need in order to put your stamp on a team. But I'm doing the best that I can, and I think it's been pretty good.
Thank you, Coach.
Ali Khanbajani.
Hey, Steven. With James, I believe around 10 to 12% of your offensive possessions were isolation. With John and Victor here, do you foresee that going down further with more pick and roll and isolation only being for mismatches as you've discussed previously, or will isolation still be a part of the offense?
It kind of remains to be seen. I know that there's a place for isolations in the game. If we get the ball down the floor quickly and we set up initial mismatches where maybe the 5, since we got the ball up so quick, maybe the 5 has to pick up Vic or pick up John, then the isolation might be a little bit sooner. If we're doing things to distort the defense and now we have a mismatch later in the possession, then the isolation might be a little bit later. We obviously don't want it to be a staple of our offense, but it's a necessity because of the way, the style that we play. So I'm not sure where the percentage will be, but it is going to be a part of what we do.
Thank you.
We'll take 2 more. Brian Bearfield.
Coach, you assessed yourself, but can I get you to give me an assessment of those young players who are getting a chance to play for the very first time, or some of those players playing a long amount of minutes? Could you assess them, and how proud you are of them for them to step up in the situations and adversity that they've gone through this year so far?
I'm so immensely proud of those guys. I mean, for Mason Jones to come into an NBA game, his first NBA start, and have 24 points. The game before, come in and really make some big plays and keep us afloat. Just so proud of him and the other guys. So proud of 𝗖𝗓𝗡 𝗖𝗧, so proud of KJ Martin. I mean, they work so hard and they're not guaranteed anything as far as playing time, minutes, or whatever, but stepped up to the occasion. And that's gratifying as a coach, and that's like one of the reasons that you coach, right? To see the fruits of the labor that guys put in to the game, but also setting up a environment, I guess you could say, that would allow those guys to do that and to flourish and to have a staff that works with the guys. I mean, like I said, John Lucas has done a great job with those guys, with those young guys. Will Weaver works with 𝗖𝗓𝗡 𝗖𝗧 because he coached him previously last year in Australia, so they have a connection, and he's done a great job. So super proud of those guys, and you know, that's just one of the reasons you coach.
Thank you.
And last question, Adam 𝗖𝗓𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧.
Steven, were you part of the draft process when Vic came out in 13?
I was. I believe we drafted Cody Zeller.
What did you make of him just when he went through that? I don't know if he worked out for you guys, but if he did anything stand out?
Yeah, I don't remember that he worked out for us. He might have, but yeah, I'm not sure. But I know we did have some communications with the coaching staff in Indiana because we did draft Cody Zeller, and they were just saying what a great kid he was and what a hard worker he is, and just like quality person. And that's from the first minute that I met him here, like the quality of that human being is off the charts. But the film study that I've done is he's a really good basketball player too. So yeah, during the draft process, we didn't really have much. I don't think we were in his range at that point, but since we drafted Cody, we did get to see him on film and then talk to the coaching staff, and they raved about him.
Have you spoken to Zeller or anyone else since you guys traded for him just to learn about him?
I've spoken to a few people around the league that I know. I haven't spoken to Cody especially, but I have a lot of people around the league who know a lot of guys. So yeah, I've done my research, but I try not to do too much research because it really comes down to that one-on-one relationship and building that on a clean slate, really. So the people I've spoken to have nothing but great things to say about him, obviously. And the initial interactions that I've had with him have followed right in line.
Thank you, Coach. We appreciate your time.
Yep.